Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson and I am joined, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chiang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, what's up?
What's up, David? I missed these late night sessions.
I
It's been a
know
while.
it's 12:16 a.m. On the East Coast. You were obviously at FTX Arena for Miami's final preseason game tonight. I'm up in New York. Getting ready for Panthers season to kick off on Thursday on Long Island. So, I didn't get to watch a whole lot of tonight's game. Obviously, not on TV here on Long Island. It might
You
surprise you.
you followed
Obviously,
along on Twitter though, right? You followed my
followed along
Twitter
on
account. You
Twitter,
read my
watched some highlight
takeaways.
clips, read your
Yeah.
takeaways, and we're going to mostly talk about this final preseason game because we're going to do our preseason takeaways tonight. But obviously, a lot of that comes down to this game. Anthony, before we dive into specifics, what were your just big picture takeaways from this Heat preseason? It seems like, and again, I didn't get to watch every game because of travel and stuff like that, but seems like a pretty successful preseason for the Heat. I kind of feel like a lot of the questions we had about them, how much can you answer in one preseason game?
Right.
Not that much, but I mean, they definitely did as much as they could. I feel like in the limited ability they had to do it in this preseason.
Yeah, it went about as well as they could have imagined, right?
Yeah,
No big injuries, no major
yeah.
injuries.
Obviously, that's number one.
Yeah, and Omar Yurtseven missed it. Omar Yurtseven, Udonis Haslem, Marcus Garrett missed tonight's game. We'll get to more Marcus Garrett news later in the podcast. Haslem's Achilles, not considered serious. Yurtseven, ankle soreness, not considered serious. So the fact that the Heat escaped preseason pretty much injury free, as far as like the main roster guys, that's great news for them. Number two, the biggest takeaway I think to me was what we saw in the preseason finale, which is like the only game that Heat handled as their dress rehearsal. The first four games, different guys are in and out of the lineup. In the finale on Tuesday night or on Wednesday night, most of pretty much all the regulars played, and the starting lineup is what we thought.
Yep.
Kyle Lowry, Tyler Herro, Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin at the four, Bam Adebayo at the five, and it looked really good. I think based on my unofficial statistics, they were a plus 12 and 20 minutes together, which is very good. Tyler Herro, questions about him playing off the ball and how that would impact his game. He's gonna have a lot of open spot up threes, which I think is good news for the Heat. He was a really good spot up shooter last year. Caleb Martin brings something a little different to the four spot, his athleticism and quickness, and he looked good as well. And just overall, I think the team looked really good. I mean, aside from that, I would say Nikola Jovic
Yeah.
exceeded all of our expectations this preseason, and then obviously Jamal Cain getting that two-way contract a few days ago. He's really had a strong preseason as well. So, kind of briefly, the quick rundown. Those are our biggest takeaways the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's just dive right into specifics then,
Yeah,
because what you mentioned with Tyler Herro and this, I think a lot of people's big takeaway is going to be that Bam looked awesome, and I get it.
that too. I missed that, but yes, that is true. You're
We'll
right
get
about
we'll get
that.
to that in a second. But to me, the biggest takeaway from what Tyler did tonight, playing with the starters, when he did all preseason, I think he shot 58% from three in the preseason. Like that's the key stat for me because I know you can talk all about Tyler Herro's potential. Like, could he be a Devin Booker type player who makes tough mid-range jumpers, who gets to the rim and finishes, and that stuff is all great. It's especially great when he's in that sixth man role. But the easiest way for Tyler Herro to get better was just to become a knockdown 3-point shooter. It was, obviously, I think when the Heat drafted him, because he's a white guy from Wisconsin, a lot of people thought this guy was going to be a sharpshooter. And in the NBA, he just kind of frankly has not been that. He was not even necessarily, I think he shot 33% from three in his 1 year at Kentucky. So it wasn't even exactly his resume when he came out of college. Um, I would say in the NBA, he was a good big shot maker, but not just like you said, a catch and shoot type guy. Uh, Tonight, those shots he's taken, that step back he hit in the corner, obviously, like you said, just making open catch and shoot threes. That's the best way for Tyler Herro to be worth the contract the Heat gave him on a short term basis. Obviously, the reason they give him a contract like that is because in 4 years, when Jimmy Butler is gone, they envision this being Bam and Tyler's show. But short term, the best way for when he is still clearly, the third best player on this team at best. We'll see what Kyle Lowry ends up being this year. The best way for him to provide value to this team is just to be a knockdown 3-point shooter.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something he's been good at. Honestly, though, like his 3-point percentage really hasn't, I guess, met expectations over his entire career. But last year, as a spot-up shooter, he's at 42.2% on 3-point range. That's one of the best in the NBA. I'm trying to look it up now. I think the last time I looked, that was 93rd percentile last year. So he's going to get more of them this year with the role he's playing next to Jimmy, Bam, and Kyle, and even Caleb with Caleb's playmaking ability. He's going to get a few more. And we saw that tonight. He was 5 of 7 from 3. Most of those are spot-up looks. And he's really, really good at those. So I would expect his 3-point percentage to go up just for that reason. He's getting more open looks and probably clear looks of the spot-up variety. So, yes, he'll have to change his game. He won't have the ball in his hands as much. But if he can hit those catch-and-shoot threes, which he's done in the past, it might even be better for him offensively. And it'll probably take some of the pressure off him, too, where he doesn't have to create and, maybe some inefficient shots that he had to do in the past because he was running things. So, it looked good tonight. Obviously, like you said, there's a long way to go. It's one game. But we kind of saw how it could work with Herro in that group.
Yeah, he's going to be a more efficient scorer almost certainly this year than he was last year, even if he's not as impressive a scorer.
Sure.
And the thing that can make him great is the ability to be that impressive isolation one-on-one scorer when the Heat need it, but also to slide into a complementary role. And, because Tyler Herro is not one of the 20 best players in the league or anything like that, like that's what you have to do to be, he's a role player for all intents and purposes right now. And the best role players, a lot of times you see it with like good young role players who can eventually blossom into stars, is they can kind of slide between both, right? They can be the primary guy when they run the bench unit, but they can also be, I think of honestly, CJ McCollum, who the Heat played against tonight, I think is a pretty decent example of that. A guy who's always good playing with Damian Lillard, but also when Damian Lillard was on the bench in Portland, he could be the guy. I think of Fred VanVleet, basically, right? The year the Raptors won the title, I think it was the clinching game where he hit all those threes and kind of went crazy in that catch and shoot type role. And then a year or two later, he's the guy there for them when Kawhi is gone. So I think if Tyler can fill that role this year, then this offense, the starting lineup obviously has a chance to be really good. And a lot is obviously made of how do they replace PJ Tucker. I think, it was the story of the offense last season, right? It was all about the 3-point percentage. What was I don't remember what the numbers were, but when they shot over, was it 40%?
40%.
The number?
Yeah.
It was if they shot over that, they basically
were unbeatable. Yeah.
And they're going to be worse defensively, so you probably need to shoot a little better than that. But if you have Tyler Herro in a role where he's going to shoot a more efficient percentage, Duncan Robinson, who I think is another major bright spot of this preseason, right? Looks like he's going to be in the rotation, right on the edge of the rotation.
Yeah.
Caleb, obviously PJ Tucker was a very efficient 3-point shooter last year, but not a high volume 3-point shooter. This team is just going to shoot better, probably just because of the guys who are going to be on the floor. And we know how good this team can be when it makes threes.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think this starting lineup has more firepower. I think offensively it's going to be better. It should be better. You have a lot of different weapons who are versatile. Tyler Herro filling in for Max Strus / Duncan Robinson in that 2-3 spot. Mm-hmm. He's obviously a better offensive player than them. Is he a better 3-point shooter? I don't know. I mean, catch and shoot, he might be
Yeah,
right there
we
with
haven't
them.
we haven't gotten to see him do
We
it,
haven't seen him really in that
and it seems
specific
like he's
role.
embracing it too, right? That's another part of it.
Well,
It's
he
like
wants to be a starter, so whatever
I
that
right,
takes, that's
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Like Duncan and Max Strus know their job, right? They're
right.
standing on the wing, they're shooting threes. Maybe they're putting the ball on the deck once and keeping it moving, right? Tyler Hero, um, if Tyler Hero wanted to be JJ Redick, he'd probably be something pretty close to JJ Redick, but he wants to be Devin
Yeah,
Booker historically, right?
right. And he has that skill set. He has the skill
He
set to do it.
does, but it also seems like you said he wants to be in the starting lineup, and whatever it takes, and what it's going to take is to do that. And tonight looks like he was embracing that.
Yeah, and it's like he said though, like if you attack him on a closeout, he said it today after the game, like he can attack the closeout
Right.
obviously very well, and he's hard to guard in those situations. So it all the like most of these guys are really versatile. Even Kyle Lowry, he doesn't need the ball in his hands to make an impact, right? Tyler Hero, we've seen tonight, he doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time to make an impact. Jimmy Butler, he can play off the ball, he can play in the post. Bam Adebayo, we've seen his versatility. And then Caleb Martin offers something totally different to the starting lineup than PJ Tucker. He's not going to replicate PJ Tucker's screening, his being able to guard up as well as PJ did, probably PJ's rebounding, just everything he did off the ball. But Caleb Martin offers something a lot different. He's quicker. His speed makes the Heat defense more dynamic. His athleticism, his ability to play make. There were a few times tonight where he blew past his defender off the dribble and created for others. PJ Tucker was not able to do that. Caleb can still hit threes. Caleb can play above the rim. So it's just a different. Although Jimmy, Bam, and Kyle are still the core of the lineup,
Mm-hmm.
there's a different feel, and I think it unlocks some things for that trio with Hero and Caleb in there because they bring something different to that lineup.
Yeah, not a whole lot of starting lineups in the NBA, I would guess, where the point guard is the slowest guy in the lineup, but that might
Yeah,
be the case for the Heat. And obviously, it because Kyle Lowry is so good at those outlet passes, he kind of doesn't need to be John Wall. It doesn't need to be John Wall getting the ball and racing down
right.
the court with everyone trying to keep up with him. He can be the guy who gets the ball and then is throwing it out to one of those guys. Like this team's going to be able to score in transition, kind of better, I think, than they did last year. Obviously, they did really well at the beginning of last year, just because the athleticism out there. And yeah, like you said, it's just PJ Tucker, I think underrated playmaker, good out of like the high post. But yeah, like you said, he's not a guy who's gonna pump fake on a three and like all of a sudden drive to the rim and
Yeah,
like you're not gonna get that
dunk over
Warriors
somebody.
well, you're not gonna get that like Warriors blender thing, right? Where everyone's driving and kicking and driving and kicking and driving
Yeah,
and kicking.
this could be that. I
It
mean,
could
this
be
really
that a
could.
little bit, this
Yeah,
Heat group. I mean, you don't want to compare anyone to them, but
no, but I'm saying they have the five. Like they have a pretty unique starting lineup in that way.
Tyler Hero would fit like he would have fit perfectly with like what the Warriors do, right? When you think about a guy who's going to draw a defender out and then like it's kind of Klay Thompson-ish, right? Where it's like, yeah, he's going to shoot threes most of the time, but also if the closeout comes, he can make a move, and he's probably a more fluid off the dribble guy than Klay Thompson is, but similar to the way Klay will do that and take that pull up too. Uh, Tyler has his counters off of that too in a way that obviously, like you said, Strus and Duncan don't.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that last season this lineup only played 17 minutes together in the regular season, and they were outscored by 15 points. They didn't play together at all in the playoffs. So
I'd be curious, like when those minutes happen. I mean, obviously, like
probably over like I think I was actually think I saw it. It was like over like 15 games. So probably like 1 or 2 minutes each time.
yeah,
Like it's so limited. So this is really the first extended stretch we've seen them
mm-hmm.
together. And again, it's one game against the Pelicans team that was missing a couple starters, I believe. But they look good. And you saw like the vision of how it could all work together if it did come together in that way this year. I guess my question to you, David, real quick, is the fact this five, does it create concern of who could be the playmaker coming off the bench?
Well, we talked about Victor Oladipo as that potential
Yeah.
guy, right? We haven't, he didn't play a ton in this preseason, right? Like patience, right, was the story you wrote the other day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's him. I mean, so it was interesting, I guess, the sixth, like the sixth you wrote about Jovic kind of being the sixth man at one point with this group. And I mean, the wisdom would dictate that Caleb Martin's going to be the first guy off the court, right? Just because, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're going to have to stagger these guys' minutes a little bit, right? Like they're going to give Tyler Herro 10 minutes a game where he's running the show.
Right. Totally.
They're going to have to space it. They're going to give Jimmy lineup run where he's out there with some shooters, and just kind of like make stuff happen by muscling your way to the rim. I think if Victor Oladipo is what we think he can be, it answers that question, I think, pretty clearly. If not, they're going to have to probably get a little creative with rotations, because you look at that bench unit, there's not, unless you feel like Gabe Vincent can just like orchestrate an offense, basically, then there's not a guy who, the best player off the bench is probably on paper Max Strus, and like we just obviously have not seen him as a creator at all. Like you probably count on like two hands, like the number of unassisted buckets he has.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're gonna have to stagger the starters. Tonight was weird because they kind of, since it was like a quote unquote preseason dress rehearsal, they kind of subbed out like starters, bench unit.
Right.
Like, you're not gonna see that much in the regular season. But I mean, there are a few guys who have the potential to play that role off the bench. Like Gabe Vincent is one, right?
Yes.
Where he's more of a natural point guard, but he could be a combo guard. Victor Oladipo, if he can get back to form, right, to play that role, we'll see. And then, I think the rest is going to be, maybe lineups with Max and Duncan together is a way you kind of create space on offense.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like an unconventional way of
creative, right? And that's Erik Spoelstra is creative. Like, I don't know, could you play again? I'm thinking staggering, I guess, but like Bam with those two, like, is that, and then like put two defenders out there with them or something, like or two others, like try to score a little bit. Maybe like they're gonna have to get creative, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that transitions well to Nikola Jovic, who's a playmaker.
Okay, so will
come off the bench.
Right, is that the answer?
I just still don't think right away he's going to be in the rotation. He's 19. He's really raw still. But I will say, entering training camp, I said this is probably going to be a total developmental year for him, where he works on his body, maybe gets reps in the G League. But from what I saw in the preseason, like, I would not be surprised if at some point this year, at least for one stretch, maybe because of injuries or whatnot, or maybe just because he's come along that fast, he might be in the rotation. He's very skilled, really good passer, looks a lot better than he did in Summer League. Hit his threes this preseason. By all accounts, you talk to everybody on the team, very smart, fast learner, doesn't make the same mistake twice. And those are all good signs for a kid who's 19 and who has the physical gifts, right? I mean, he's almost 7 feet tall, and he could, he's a modern day kind of passing, 3-point shooting big. So really encouraging. And if he does like kind of, fulfill his potential in a year or two, he could be the perfect frontcourt partner with Bam.
Yeah.
Getting ahead of ourselves, but really like his skill set fits perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, realistic, like, is he going to be an important guy if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals? Like, probably not, right?
Probably not.
But I mean, you think of like, again, not to just keep going back to the Warriors, but they're the defending champions, and I think are a good example of the way to handle rookies on a team that's in contention. Like, no, Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga weren't important parts of the NBA Finals, but they were important parts of the Warriors season. And I think that's probably the way to think of what Jovic can be for this team. Is he going to be on the court in the fourth quarter of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Sixers or whatever? No. But could we have a 2-week stretch in March where there's a bunch of injuries and he's averaging like 10, 8, and 6 across a 2-week stretch off the bench and kind of filling in that 6-man role? Maybe. Or could he just, be by the end of the year, be the backup power forward in a 10 or 11-man rotation and give you 14 minutes a night? That stuff all matters. And even if it doesn't, even when the rotations get tight, he might not be there. Based on what we saw, it would not be a surprise if he's playing a role. Still be surprised, like you said,
Yeah.
if he's a core component of what this team is going to do on its title quest. But yeah, I mean, again, another guy who just, I think, massively exceeded expectations and kind of went as well as it could have gone for the Heat in the preseason.
And like we've said, he's skilled offensively. He showed some promise defensively. He has length, but defense is going to be the biggest issue that keeps him off the court, right? Like, it's not sustainable to be playing him right now against starting caliber or even rotation caliber NBA players. It's going to take some time. So I think that's the biggest reason why maybe he doesn't have a consistent role this year. But I do think, like you said, there will be a stretch where they need him for some reason. And he has shown a lot of potential where, he could be a great pick at that spot at number 27. It looks like they might have hit that. So it was a good sign for them, for the Heat.
Do you still think there's a chance he spends some time in the G League this year? Or do you think he has showed enough and benefited enough from being on the NBA team?
I would say you never know what could happen, over the next 6 months. But I would say there's less of a chance now than there was 2 weeks ago. But I wouldn't be shocked if at some point they send him for a week, right? Because they see he hasn't played in 3 weeks. He's 19 and he needs to get reps. And they just sent him there for a week. They did that with Josh Richardson.
Yeah.
They did that with KZ Okpala. They've done that before. So I would not be shocked. I don't think it's going to be for a long period of time, but I could see a week or two over there just to get a few games.
Try to get kind of the best, because obviously guys benefit from the practice.
Yeah.
NBA practice probably more than they do from G League practice. But
as you know, there aren't many practice opportunities.
That's true too.
There's a lot of off days. So, there might be a week where they feel like it's best to have him there. Maybe they're not going to practice. He's not going to play. Everyone's healthy. And they send him over. So I would say there's less of a chance now, like I said, than 2 weeks ago, but I wouldn't rule it out completely.
Before we finish up, I want to talk about Bam because he was another, I think, big story of the preseason for the Heat. 25 points in 25 minutes tonight, 64 points in 74 minutes in the preseason. Everyone wants it to be more aggressive. Again, it's just the preseason, but it seems like we saw that today, and obviously he's talked about it for the last couple of years, so it's, he knows it's what he's supposed to be, I guess, trying to transform into. What did you think of his performance in this preseason, and particularly tonight, getting that chance with the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think he fulfilled his word and more, right? We've heard the talk about be more aggressive. I'm going to be more aggressive, and it just hasn't really happened. I mean, he's upped his shot attempts every year, but there's always been a push for just more and more. He hasn't really satisfied that request yet from the outside, at least. This preseason, I'm looking at the per 36 numbers. He's averaging 31 points on 19.4 shot attempts a game, 12.1 free throws per 36 minutes. I'm not saying he's going to do that in the regular season, but those per 36 numbers that's all NBA, right? If he's averaging 31 points per 36 minutes on 19 shot attempts and 12 free throws, you can't ask for anything more from him offensively. He's going to do what he does on defense. He's arguably the best defender in the NBA. But the aggressiveness and the assertiveness that you saw was really the most impressive thing. And it wasn't in the way that maybe we would have thought, right? He's not taking that many threes still.
Yeah.
I think he took maybe no more than a handful of threes in the preseason. But he's getting to the line a lot more. 12.1 free throws per 36 minutes.
Yeah.
And
he's always been a very good free throw shooter.
And he's a 75% around there range.
One of the best free throw shooting centers in the league.
Yeah. So all good signs for Bam. Now the question is, can he sustain that over a long period of time? And that's what we're going to find out in the next month or two, if he could continue doing that and playing that role. But so far, you can't help but just be excited for kind of how his offensive game is trending at this point.
It's such a weird thing to talk about because it is we're getting into psychology of guys in some ways. But what about what we saw in the preseason? I don't know, just taking the optimist view. Why is this different? What did you see in the preseason that makes, I don't know if this is your thought, but that he's going to sustain something close to this in the regular season? Just in terms of the aggression, right? Not saying he's going to be the best center in the league, right? But
I don't think we've seen him be this assertive even in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's only 3 games, but just from what I saw, like I haven't seen this level of assertiveness from Bam. I don't know ever, unless there were like a ton of guys hurt.
Right.
And he was the only
Right.
guy.
That game against Brooklyn, right? The
Right.
COVID year where he scored 40 or 45
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
And just the way he's operating and getting to the line, I mean, those are hidden shot attempts, right? Because he finished with 12 shot attempts tonight in 25 minutes, but if he drew 12 free throws, he shot what, 6 more
Yeah.
times, right? There's like those are hidden shot attempts. So
It's a Jimmy Butler
I,
thing,
it
right? Is he
is. I mean,
learning
and
from Jimmy?
I haven't asked him about the free throws today. He said, I'm learning from the best in Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been an emphasis of his, and he's upped his free throw attempts every year, and it looks like might do that again this year, and he's in a role now where he doesn't have to facilitate as much. He's not at
True.
the elbow just scanning the floor, getting guys in the dribble handoffs. Like there are a ton of other guys who could do that. Kyle Lowry can do that. Tyler Herro can do that. Jimmy Butler can do that, and Bam will do that still sometimes, but he doesn't have to be relied on to play that role as much. So I think it kind of takes that pressure off of him. And the guys have said they want him to shoot more. So I think it'll be different. But again, we won't know until
Right.
the real games start.
Yeah, the way he fits in the lineup that's a good point because obviously when he's out there, especially when he was out there with Duncan Robinson, a core tenet of what they did on offense was that dribble handoff. And now there's no Strus, there's no Robinson. Like that, like you said, they're still going to do stuff like that. But I mean, how many times did we see the Bam does a dribble handoff, gives it to Duncan. Duncan can't quite shake his man. He gives it back to Bam, who sets a screen. Like that's just not going to be part of. Like he's going to.
No.
It's on paper he's going to be around the rim a lot more, and he's going to have to be, right, because not that PJ Tucker's what 6'5" and not center, right, but he was much more of a center who could be the guy in rebound position than Caleb Martin probably will be. So he's going to have to be near the rim a lot more, and that'll only help his game. And obviously, he hit a couple threes too. So I would guess, didn't we look it up last week? We were like shocked that he only attempted 1 3. Was it 1 3 he attempted last year? Like he's gonna probably shoot more than that too, or maybe made 1 3.
I think he was. I think he made 0 threes last year. He was 1 for 3 in the preseason this year.
Right.
And last year in the regular season,
it was like 0 for 1.
Oh, 6 or something.
Yeah.
0 of 6. 0 of 6.
Yeah, like.
And I'm guessing. I mean, without even like blindly, I'm assuming more than half of those are like end of the shot clock,
right,
or end of the quarter type of shots where you're just heaving it up.
He's not going to average a 3 per game, I don't think, but he'll shoot more than 6 threes this year, I would bet.
Yeah, and I'm guessing he'll make a handful at least. Probably though I would say if I set the over under at 15 threes made for Bam, would you say the over or the under?
I'm gonna say the under, but it's also the situation where like if he it just kind of feels like last year because was it 2 years ago or 3 the bubble year he shot kind of a lot of threes that year, not like a lot, but
he shot more than 6.
Yeah, definitely, and made some. Remember there was the whole thing where like it was Jimmy would give him like $1,000 every time he attempted a three or something, right?
It was 2 of 4. It was 2 of 14. So I don't know.
Yeah, so
he took more, but not much.
He took more. So it could be this could be a situation where he makes 30, right? Like where he way overshoots that projection because he starts to feel it at some point in the year and rolls with it. But I'll take the under.
He took 3 in the red, white, and pink scrimmage, which had Twitter ablaze. I'm
sure.
Right,
that's what I was thinking of. I think, but he also did take some in game 1 of the preseason, right?
I think he took 1. It
made one. In game
it might have been on the road. I'm not sure, but he made 1 this preseason. It was one of the first few games. But yeah, like tonight in the finale, he took 1. I don't really remember it, but he took 1. He missed it, but he's at least he's taking them, right? So he seems like he's taking about 1 a game, 1.5 a game in the preseason. So if that continues, he's gonna run into a few. So
yeah, and we should say with the Bam scoring, like he's going to score better, probably a higher like you said. If what we see is reality, like it's a good sign. But there are gonna be nights where he's gonna like take like 6 shots, right? It's just how it's going to work with this offense. The way that we've said it a million times that Jimmy and Bam are not your traditional stars, where every other team in the league that's competing for a championship has a high volume offensive player, whether it's an obvious guy like Luka Doncic, or if it's Giannis, right? Like who does it a little bit more in the flow. Like those guys, everything is running through those guys. Obviously, most of what the Heat do is going to run through Jimmy Butler and Bam, but the way those guys are both wired is they're, for non-point guards, probably the non-point guards and like non-LeBron, I guess, they're the most pass-first, like facilitation-oriented stars in the league, I kind of feel like, in the non-point guard, non-LeBron division.
For sure. And you're right. I think there are going to be games where Bam takes 5 shots, and that's okay. Like in this team, as we've seen in the past, like Jimmy's going to have a night where he takes 15 shots and 10 free throws, and then there's other nights where Jimmy takes 4 shots. Right?
Yeah, the difference I think is that the nights when Bam only takes 5 shots they're going to be the nights when Duncan Robinson has 33 points instead of the nights where it feels like nothing is happening and Bam also only takes 5 shots. Right, that's what he needs to get away from.
Yeah, he averaged 13, a big jump actually, 10.8 shots per game in 21-20. Sorry, looking at preseason stats. That was a big jump.
I didn't even know you could look that.
He took 13 shots a game last year, so I think he's gonna get up. He said he wants to get to 18 shots a game. I don't know if we'll get up that high.
He's gonna get fouled too much.
But yeah, I would say like 15, right? Is
15.
realistic.
15, I think should be like the target number.
And he took 6.1 free throws a game last year. See like 7 or 8. Let's say 8. He averages 15 shots a game and 8 free throws a game. That's pretty good from him. That's a kind of a pretty significant uptick in assertiveness from him. So, how does that change the Heat's offense? Where do those shots come from? Like at the expense of who? Mm-hmm. That's another question. But I think assertive Bam is essential to kind of this team taking another step because, like we've said, they have a lot of the same guys. They need some new ideas and some leaps from the young players like Bam and Tyler. And so, and in the preseason, they look like better players. So that's good news for the Heat.
All right. Did we miss anything? We talked a little bit about Duncan. I think that's a positive sign.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to go over a couple of the negatives really briefly. There are many, and not really negatives, but just things that were maybe didn't meet expectations because of injury or whatever. One, I would say Haywood Highsmith, just kind of quiet.
Yeah, we thought he was going to maybe be the next Strus. But
yeah, like I thought he'd be like a
backup
four rotation guy maybe because of the lack of depth of power forward. He played good in the summer league. He was not in the top 11 tonight in the dress rehearsal. He entered the game with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and that was it. So, and he kind of was, he didn't really have any, standout performance in the preseason. It was just kind of, whatever. Like he didn't really notice him much. So
he'll get his shots, like we said again, because of injuries and the season is long. And maybe he'll be really good when he gets his crack. But yeah, right now, let's pump the brakes, I guess, on him being the next.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere guy.
Yeah. And then Omer Yurtseven just because of injury. He played the preseason before, and then he's missed the last 4 preseason games because of ankle soreness. And he was another guy who we thought probably would be in the rotation.
We spent a lot of time talking about him last week.
Yeah, and that was the only game he's played in. And it doesn't seem like, even if he's back, it doesn't seem like a serious injury, but even if he's back for the opener, it seems like other guys are ahead of him at this point.
Yeah. Eventually, we always thought it was going to be him versus Dedmon, and maybe a little situational. And
Yeah, and it might change throughout the years, but I would just say I was hoping to see more of Yurtseven just because of injury. We didn't get a chance, so that was kind of another preseason disappointment just because of injury. And then the other two really quick are two-way contract guys, at least the 2 former two-way guys. Marcus Garrett didn't shoot the ball one preseason, ends up having a fractured right wrist, second serious wrist injury in the last 10 months. So he had wrist surgery in January on that same one. And now he fractured it. So the Heat waived him from his 2-way deal on Wednesday night. And then a few days ago, they waived Darius Days, who undrafted forward out of LSU. Really didn't play much in the preseason. Jamal Cain looked incredibly good. Kind of forced the Heat's hand. And they waived Darius Days and replaced him with Jamal Cain. So just the two-way contract guys the Heat thought they had, 2 different guys right now.
Yeah.
Drew Smith and Jamal Cain.
Can Jamal Cain be the next heat out of nowhere guy? You've
He
touched
might
on,
be.
you've alluded to him a couple times. What did you like
Yeah,
about
he might
him
be.
this
He
preseason?
looks good. He kind of fits the mold of what the Heat like out of that undrafted like power forward spot. He could shoot, which we didn't see much of in college, but he made
Mhm.
his threes in the preseason, and he think he has upside there. That part of his game. Very versatile defender. Needs to add some weight onto his frame. He's thin, but you've seen the defensive skills guarding Kevin Durant in Brooklyn pretty well. Um, Very good off-ball cutter. Scored a lot of points in the preseason just off of cuts and alley-oops, and he's very athletic. Really doesn't need to dribble the ball to make a play, kind of PJ Tucker-like, but just more athletic in that way. So yeah, I don't think he's gonna play, that much this season. But definitely stood out a lot more than I expected. Did you watch him at all in college? Like
I think he finished his career at Oakland,
Marquette?
right? Like,
No, in Oakland. Yeah, he was at Marquette for 4 years, and then went to Oakland
yeah.
last. Yeah, yeah. But
So
yeah,
he's, by the way, that itself touches on two like key Heat like
yeah,
things. Marquette, obviously, Dwayne Wade and Jimmy
yeah.
Butler, and Oakland, kind of. I don't want to say the original out of nowhere Heat guy, but
Kendrick
in
Nunn.
the Kendrick
Yeah,
Nunn, kind of the
yeah.
original out of nowhere Heat guy in this Jimmy Butler era, uh, came out of Oakland after transferring from a bigger program. So yeah, he fits a lot of the characteristics that the Heat look for.
Sioux Falls is gonna be very good this year, I think.
Yeah, you're gonna be
Especially,
spending some time out there.
especially if Jovic is playing over there, they're gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, that'll be. Not gonna watch them. Just gotta not gonna watch any G League unless
we
they
should do a
play the
we should,
Ignite.
we
I
should
don't
do
know.
a
I don't really
Sioux Falls
understand.
Skyforce segment every week. What do you
I don't
think?
really understand how the G League Ignite works. Will they play the Sky Force? Maybe I'll watch that
I
game.
think so. I think they play every G League team.
By the way, we didn't. I can't. We record last week before
Victor
Victor and
Mania.
Scoot.
Yeah, I think we did, but
That was awesome.
that was insane. I didn't get a chance to watch it much because I think
I think the Heat played that
we
night.
were
Maybe.
playing like both nights or at least one of the nights. I didn't get to watch it, but yeah, that was something. He's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, I
he's
like
pretty good.
Scoot too. And
Scoot, yeah,
And two of the other
super
top
athletic.
prospects in the draft are the Thompson twins, who are out of overtime elite, but are originally Pinecrest kids. They won a
Really,
state
I didn't
title at
know that.
Pinecrest 3 or 4 years ago
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. I
before
didn't know that.
before skipping their senior year of high school to go to play for the overtime program in Atlanta. So it's a fun draft class. Not a lot of college guys, which as a college basketball guy um, makes me a little sad. But at least there's a couple Americans up there. As like a USA basketball guy. It was kind of looking dicey there. Obviously, Victor's not, but
Yeah,
Scoot
I,
and the
c-
Thompson twins. Like,
I call him Victor. I call him Victor W. That's
I
my
think I think
that's
he
my
likes
nickname.
Wemby. I think he changed his
Wemby. Okay,
Instagram
I
name
can
to
do that.
Wemby.
I can do that. I could do that one.
LeBron calls him an alien, the alien, right? That's the other one that
Yeah.
people have been going with.
It, Teams are going to tank hard this year.
It's kind of crazy that we're like, I was all in on Chet, and then like this guy is just like Chet, but like
The next evolution of
you
Chet.
know,
It's
like how
like
did we already
like
get the next evolution of Chet? Like Chet isn't
what
even
is the
like
Thunder
they're
might even get both of
both
them.
of them.
Like
Like
what do you do
Wembanyama is gonna like we got the evolution of Chet, and he's gonna play in the NBA. Maybe depending on like when both
before Chet?
guys
Yeah.
like debut next year, like maybe he'll play before Chet somehow. Like the
Yeah.
novelty on Chet wore out so quickly.
I'm really interested to see kind of how this because the top end of the draft class is so good and has the potential to be like so special. How many teams tank? I think there's gonna be like
Yeah, I mean
teams we
we
don't even
already
expect at
know at
certain
least a
points
couple,
or
but yeah, like again, some of these teams, like we have some of these all stars we have talked about maybe becoming available at some point.
yeah, for sure. And who
Like
knows? That could impact the Heat.
Portland, what if
Yeah,
Portland all of a sudden is like, Dame, love you, but we like Victor Wembanyama a little bit more? Or
right.
Washington, what if they are, say, Brad, thanks for signing that extension, but Victor Wembanyama is
Yeah.
French and gonna be a good marketing tool for us. Yeah, there's gonna be some teams, and at SGA, like I have to think, like
Eventually, yeah.
is OKC really just gonna keep hanging on to him?
Yeah. And we now know what's going on in Utah, by the way. We now know very clearly what's going on in Utah. They will be in the tankathon, it
Yes,
seems like.
for sure. I guess this is our last episode before the season kicks off. Do you have any just big NBA thoughts that you want to spring a title? I haven't thought about my title pick or anything like that.
I haven't really either, to be honest. Maybe
Do you?
it's still early enough in the season.
What do you think of the Philly hype?
I think they're gonna be. I think they're like in the Heat tier.
I think they're gonna be awesome in the regular season, but I still have questions about James Harden in the playoffs.
Yeah, right. I mean, there are a lot of questions surrounding not only James Harden but Joel Embiid, right? His health is always he was stayed relatively healthy last year, but in the playoffs he obviously got dinged up and he's dealt with injuries pretty much every year of his career. So there's always going to be those questions. But Tyrese Maxey looks like he took another step.
I'm a big fan.
The addition of PJ Tucker. If James Harden can get back to even close to what he was a few years ago, yeah, they'll be up there with the other top teams in the East. So I think the hype is legit. Are they like a favorite in the East? I would say no, but they're a contender.
I'm much more into the Clippers as the team that could go from never getting out of the second round to winning the title. I think I think the Sixers have kind of somehow captured that corner where people are like, are they actually the best team in the league, even though they've never made it past the second round of the playoffs? I think the Clippers. I more believe in them to do that.
Yeah, they have a loaded roster, and if Kawhi and Paul George are healthy the entire year, I think people are sleeping on them just because
it's just it might be my John Wall bias though.
And John Wall. I mean, I'm excited to watch John Wall play. Okay?
Yeah,
like, we haven't seen him in so long. I like the Clippers too. I'm high on the Clippers. I think they are not getting enough attention.
Yeah, a lot of parity again. There was last year too, but it's a good spot for the league to be in, obviously.
Yeah. My Heat prediction, I think last year, what did they finish? 50-32? Let's see. It is now 1 a.m., by the way. They finished 53 with 53 wins. So I'm going to say 49 wins and 49-32. I think they finish home court in the East.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm not going to stick a number on it, but I agree they finish home court in the East. I think they are. I think Philly just with Harden and Embiid, they're going to be awesome in the regular season.
Yeah.
I think. I kind of feel like they're going to get the one in the East.
Really? Wow.
But who else? I mean, unless you think like maybe Milwaukee.
Boston.
Yeah, I think Boston. It's going to just be. I think it can't be the start of the year. It's not going to be. I can't imagine.
A lot of things going on.
Yeah. And Robert Williams going to miss some time. Right. But I think it's still the same top four basically.
So you don't buy Brooklyn.
No, I mean I should, but
yeah. I don't disagree with.
I need to see it.
Yeah, that's why.
I'm not betting on them.
Yeah, I think that's
Toronto's interesting too.
Toronto, Atlanta, Cleveland, obviously.
We talked about
the East is deep. The East is deep. The East is deep. So, it's going to be competitive. The standings are probably going to be really tight for most of the year, from like 1 to 6, right? Like it probably won't be much of a gap. But I just think the Heat are deep enough. They're kind of, I don't want to say built for the regular season because that's kind of disrespectful. But like they're a good regular season.
Yeah, they had the best record in the East in the regular season. As long as they stay healthy, like Jimmy Butler's not going to let this team screw around.
Right, and they have enough depth to overcome an injury or two. Where they can win in those situations. We saw it last year. So I think they've 49 wins, couple wins, a little step back from last year, but still top 4 in the East. And we'll see what happens. That's all you can ask for. In the playoffs, it's a new season. So it'll be a good year.
All right. We'll finish up there. Thanks as always for listening. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. Lots of Heat coverage these days, lots of everything coverage. So just check out MiamiHerald.com for all of our sports coverage in South Florida. And we will talk to you guys next week.